I don't know if it'll gross you out, maybe it'll even intrigue you. I don't know. But when it comes to these ancient times, they had a collective of rituals and superstitions and all that jazz. Anyways, let's all look into it. My name is Jessa, and we're going to look at the top 10 bizarre ancient Roman rituals that might gross you out. Or will gross you out. Number 10, public and private worship. When it comes to public and private worship, public was more formal, concentrated, and conservative compared to private worship with family. When it came to the gods and goddesses of ancient Rome, some of their worship included the worship of Mithras, a Persian god popular among Roman soldiers, which involved secretive initiations rituals in underground temples. Additionally, the Romans practiced the custom of exposure, where unwanted infants would be left outside to die or be rescued by passerby. Number 9, festival and celebrations. One of the most magnificent holidays in ancient Rome was Saturnalia, a festival in honor of the god of agriculture of Saturn, which began on December 17th. According to the Julian calendar, on this day slaves received many freedoms, and according to some sources, they would dine at the festival table with their owners. According to others, the slaves would dine first, and the owners even set the table for some of them, although in any case the servants left the cooking. Also on this holiday, slaves had the right to freely criticize their owners without fear of punishment, and even on another festival was just as odd, celebrated on February the 15th, Lupercalia was also known as a fascinating festival that was used to avert evil spirits, purifying the city as well as to ensure health and fertility. As this month was usually near the end of winter, which during the time the earth seemed a bit more to wither and die, this was the rebirth of life to the ancient Romans. After that, they would make a sacrifice of salted cakes prepared by the Vestal virgins. The flammodalius will anoint the foreheads of the priests with blood from the sacrificial knife, and he would wipe the blade clean with a wool soaked in milk. The inebriated priest would then skin the goats, construct some makeshift undies from them in order to honor Faunus or Pan, and when these drunken priests' foreheads slathered with animal blood, wearing goatskin thongs and wielding whips made from the remnants of the goatskin, the priest would then run around the Palatine Hill, where women who want to become pregnant or wasn't able to would gather, hoping to get smacked by the bloody goat flesh whip. Number 8, temples and sacred spaces. Temples were dedicated to specific gods and goddesses and served as a place of worship. The Romans also believed in Numia, a spirit residing in natural objects and places, and rituals were conducted at these sacred spaces. In the ancient Roman temples of Vesta, the sacred fire was constantly maintained. Initially, it was guarded by the Vestal priestess. All the time, the Vestals had to maintain a modest lifestyle. Its violation was strictly punished, and it was believed that the Romans could not take on such a sin as the execution of the Vestal. Therefore, they were punished by burial alive or with a small supply of food, which was not formally capital punishment, and the seducer was spotted to death. The Vestal virgins joined as girls and took a vow of chastity for 30 years. Their most important role was to keep a fire in the Temple of Vesta always burning. Vestal virgins were considered sacred, and any attempt to hurt or kill them was punishment by death, and this caused problems whenever any of the Vestal virgins broke their vow of chastity, something that was seen as disastrous for the Roman state and which happened surprisingly often. Number 7, being a gladiator. Those who were gladiators were taught how to kill and die stoically. Defeated, who failed to obtain the so-called missis or grace, would choose the way of death, and he would kneel on the ground in front of his opponent, lean over and wrap his left arm around his left knee, and thus exposing his neck. One quick cut to the throat severed the major arteries and ensure a quick but bloody death, and if the vanquished was too badly wounded to get on his knees, he was killed with a single stab from behind, sinking the sword directly into his heart. But where did they put all the bodies of dead gladiators? Well, in front of the entrance of the arena of Roman amphitheaters, there was a special space, that so-called splorarium. To become a gladiator, by the way, it was necessary to take the oath and declare yourself legally dead. But to sleep with a gladiator, even among married women, was not shameful. As ancient writers wrote, gladiators' blood could heal epilepsy or infertility. The blood was collected and sold to the crowd. When the body of the death of a gladiator was taken out of the arena, the sellers collected still warm blood and sold it to the crowd. Number 6, Imperium and Auspices. Imperium in the ancient Rome referred to the authority and power vested in a magistrate, particularly in a military context. It was a crucial concept in Roman governance and was granted through various mechanisms depending on the type of magistrate. Imperium encompasses both civil and military authority, and the magistrates with Imperium had the ability to command troops and make binding decisions. Auspices were a form of divination in ancient Rome used to interpret omens and seek the approval of the gods before important decisions or actions. The practice of taking auspices played a crucial role in Roman religious and political life. Auspices involved the observation of birds and their behavior to discern the will of the gods. The augurs, a specialized priestly class, were responsible for interpreting the flights, calls, and behavior of the birds. The process of taking auspices involves specific rituals, including one of using sacred spaces and the utterance of prayers and the observation of said birds. birds. If the birds behaved favorably, then it was considered a positive omen, auspicious. If not, then it was considered inauspicious. Number 5, divination. Like people in other ancient civilizations, many ancient Romans believed in magic, and ancient writings suggest that professional witches worked in Rome. In the 2nd century AD, author Apuleius wrote a detailed description of one casting an evil spell cooked with spices of all sorts and the remains of ill-omened birds, and numerous pieces of mourned and even buried corpses, hair, noses, and fingers, and there were also flesh-covered spikes from crucified bodies. One Roman specialty was cursed tablets, which were inscribed on thin sheets of lead and then buried, thrown into a well or pool, placed in a stone cracked or nailed to the wall of a temple. They were typically addressed to infernal gods like Pluto, Charon, or Hecate, and often called for violent divine punishment in response for trivial sights. More than 100 cursed tablets have been found in archaeological digs at the ancient English city of Bath, which in Roman times was a resort famed for the healing powers of its hot springs. One tablet featured a curse for a stolen swimsuit addressed to the goddess of the temple there, which quoted, "I give your divinity and majesty my bathing tunic and cloak. Do not allow sleep or health to him who has done me wrong, whether man or woman or slave or free, unless he reveals himself and bring those goods to your temple." That's one way to get your stuff back. Number 4, the left. One particularly Roman superstition was a belief that the left-hand side was evil, while the right hand was surprisingly obviously represented good. That's shown by modern English word sinister, meaning something gives an impression of evil, which comes from the Latin word sinister, meaning on the left side. A possible origin of this belief among the Romans may lie in the earlier belief among the Indo-Europeans, who were reigning between 9,000 and 6,000 years prior, spreading throughout Europe from Asia, and may have even been the ancestors of the Romans. Whatever the origin of the superstition may be, it became part of Romans' belief. The Latin word sinister was used in Roman augury, where the Greek practice of considering the left to be unlucky resulted in an unfavorable omen if birds flew to the left, and so sinister came to mean harmful or adverse. Left-handed people were considered untrustworthy, and the Roman superstition may be the origin of the idea of waking up on the wrong side of the bed, aka the left side. It's also said the noble Roman employed footmen to enter a house before them using on their right feet. Number 3, funerary practices. If you want to brag today, what do you buy? You buy a large car, a new big house, or expensive clothes. In Roman times, you had a large collection of death masks made out of beeswax. All your ancestors had to be represented there, at least 5 generations back. All his hundreds of masks were then placed on the walls in your atrium for each guest to be seen. During the nighttime, you would place a small oil lamp carefully behind each mask so that all of your 200 ancestors would glow in the dark and smile upon you and remind you that all will be left from you soon is nothing else than one further added mask on the wall. The Romans had a complex and evolving belief system regarding the afterlife. Their belief was influenced by various factors, including their early roots in animisms and ancestor worship, as well as later influences from Greek philosophy and mystery cults. It's worth noting that the Roman beliefs about the afterlife were not uniform. Different individuals and social classes held very different beliefs, and personal interpretations and synchronisms of different religious traditions were common. As the Roman Empire expanded and encountered new cultures and religions, the beliefs about the afterlife became more diverse and influenced by these external influences. Number 2, lustratio. Lustratio was a ritual purification ceremony performed to cleanse individuals, places, or the entire community. It often involved the sprinkling of water, the use of sacred herbs, and the chanting of prayers. One also well-known illustrio was the illustrio of the Roman army, known as the Sovetorialia, which involved the sacrifice of a pig, a sheep, and a bull. The consecration of new buildings, temples, or other public spaces involved lustratio to purify the area and make it fit for religious or civic use. Lustratio had a deep religious significance in Roman culture, as it was believed to restore the favor of the gods and ensure their benevolence. The ceremony aimed to remove any spiritual pollution or negative influences that might have occurred. Lustratio played a vital role in maintaining the religious and spiritual health of individuals, places, and the Roman state. The ritual associated with lustratio was deeply ingrained in Roman religious practices and reflected the importance of purity and divine favor in the cultural and religious worldview of ancient Rome. And finally, number 1, sacrifices. Of course, each Roman father had the right to decide if his newborn baby was kept alive or right away killed. The mother had no say in this decision, and in some way, sacrificing your child was a right that was quite common for the time. Roman citizens were also not allowed to take their own life just like that. One would have to submit a petition to the Senate without a description of the reasons that prompted him to this step. If the senators found these reasons satisfactory, the petitioner was then given poison for free. If ancient Romans really wanted to know what was going to happen, they might turn to haruspicy, a divination of the future, by examining the entrails of animals, which was considered much more accurate than augury. The idea behind haruspicy was that the internal organs of an animal, usually sheep or poultry, but sometimes oxen, that can be sacrificed to the gods could be that a medium for their messages. The liver of a sacrificial animal was the most important organ because it's considered the site of the soul, but the animal's hearts, lungs, and kidneys, spleen, and intestines were also examined. Well, that's all for today. Not sure if this was your Roman Empire, but it certainly was somebody's. Thanks for listening in, and be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you around, and my name is Jess, and I wish you all the best. Bye!